With rallies in multiple cities around the country and criticism from some leading Republican senators, a major legal showdown is brewing over President Trump's emergency declaration from Friday to build that border wall. California leading the way, a coalition of states that plan to sue the Trump administration over the president's decision to bypass Congress and redirect taxpayer money to fulfill his campaign promise to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border and not have Mexico pay for it and not have it be appropriated by Congress. Even in his declaration, the president acknowledged the fight ahead, but undermined the legal basis for declaring a national emergency by saying he did not need to do it right now.
$5 billion. I didn't need to do this, but I'd rather do it much faster. And I don't have to do it for the election. I've already done a lot of wall for the election, 2020. And the only reason we're up here talking about this is because of the election.
Joining me now, California Attorney General Xavier Becerra, former Democratic congressman, of course, now the Attorney General. Welcome, General Becerra. Let's talk about your lawsuit. When are you planning to file?
Andrea, we'll be filing today, President's Day, unfortunately, and we'll be joined by at least a dozen states.
And tell me the basis for your filing.
It's pretty clear. As you pointed out, the president admitted that there's not a basis for the declaration. He admitted there's no crisis at the border, and he's now trying to rob funds that were allocated by Congress legally to the various states and the people of our states. And so the separation of powers being violated, we're going to go out there and make sure that Donald Trump cannot steal money from the states and the people who need them, since we paid the taxpayer dollars to Washington, D.C. to get those services.
The argument, of course, from the White House is that the president has broad authorities under the Emergency Act, and that this has been done dozens of times in the past, most recently by President Obama.
The president does have broad authority, but he does not have authority to violate the Constitution. The president is once again showing his contempt for the rule of law. President Obama never did this. He never tried to raid accounts, funding accounts that have been allocated by Congress. When a president tries to do that, the Supreme Court typically will step in and say, keep your hands out of the cookie jar.
Now, Stephen Miller, the White House aide, who is apparently the brains and the impetus behind a lot of this policy, was on Fox News with our colleague Chris Wallace and was trying to justify it to Wallace on Fox News Sunday. Let's watch.
Can you name one case where a president has asked Congress for money, Congress has refused, and the president has then invoked national powers to get the money anyway?
Well, this current situation...
Just yes or no, sir?
The current situation pertains specifically to the Military Construction Authority.
I'm just asking, has there been a single case where Congress asked for money for military construction, Congress said no, and he then...
The meaning of the statute, Chris, is clear on its own terms. If you don't like the statute, or members of Congress don't like the statute...
Would you agree the answer is no? There hasn't been a single case like this.
Well, Attorney General Becerra, in terms of your case, how do you lay out the arguments against what the president has done, against the presumption of presidential power when it comes to national security?
Well, we first lay out the president as our chief witness against his own declaration. We could probably then bring out Mr. Miller, if he's the brains behind the operation, as exhibit number 2. And we will continue to point out that, as Fox News even pointed out, presidents don't go in and claim declarations of emergency for the purposes of raiding accounts because they weren't able to get Congress to fund items it wanted, the president wanted. It doesn't work that way, and this president seems to not get it, that he's bound by the rule of law just the way the rest of us are. And his office, as powerful as it is constrained by the Constitution.
And I should also point out that the acting defense secretary, Patrick Shanahan, on a flight back to Washington from a trip overseas, said that they don't even have any projects now planned. They have no basic plan for how to use these monies.
Andrea, it should be evident to everyone by now that Donald Trump plays with matches. The difficulty is that it appears now that Republicans in Congress are going to be complicit in that game. The party of Lincoln on President's Day may demonstrate that it's become, in every respect, hook, line, and sinker, the party of Donald Trump. And that's scary.
Do you worry that it could go all the way up to the Supreme Court and he now has a clear majority with Justice Kavanaugh?
And here's the difficulty. I don't think Donald Trump cares if it does go all the way, because I don't really believe Donald Trump cares if he wins or loses in court on getting this emergency declaration.
Why? What do you think he's doing? If it's not, to win.
This is theater. He's using the power of the presidency to essentially perform to his shrinking base, because he made a campaign promise and he wants to demonstrate that this is a guy who keeps his promises. He wouldn't be so blatantly violating the law, and you can hear all his own people, whether it's in Homeland Security or otherwise, explain that the president doesn't have the power to do this, and even his best brainy advisor, Mr. Miller, couldn't explain how you justify raiding pots of money that Congress has legally allocated.
California Attorney General Xavier Becerra, thanks very much. Good to see you again, sir.
Thank you, Andrew.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.